Carbon. It's everywhere. The chairs you sit upon, the tables you use, the food you eat, the cars you drive. It's everywhere. In fact, you can't escape it. For your body is made of carbon. At this very moment, you breathe out carbon through the most basic process of all living organisms, respiration. So this entire cycle is made possible by our friends the plants. Plants draw down carbon from the atmosphere and turn it into various sugars in their tissue that form the basis for life for all organisms on this planet. But that's not the end of where the carbon goes. A lot of the carbon during the life cycle of plants is released into the soil itself, where it fuels a vast consortium of microorganisms in the soil who ultimately determine what happens to that carbon. As they interact with the carbon, some of the carbon is of course respired right back into the atmosphere, but a substantial portion of it is altered by them and stays in the soil for years, decades, centuries, or sometimes millennia. And at the end of the day, the carbon cycle is at the heart of one of our big problems nowadays, the anthropogenic climate change. And a lot of you may be thinking, well, why does this concern me? The dirt is something I walk upon, food comes from a supermarket shelf. Would it surprise you to know that when it comes to anthropogenic contributions to climate change, the greatest contributor is not driving cars or factories. If you sum all of those and compare it to the amount of carbon that was released when we first broke the sod in the Great Plains of North America and the steppes of Eurasia, that was more carbon released in a few decades than we've managed to achieve in everything else we've burned. If we can understand how carbon is utilized in the soil, what drives microbes to convert it into forms that then stay within the soil, stored there for very long periods of time, we may be better able to manage the soils and help solve some of our current existential crises. This is where my research comes in. I will endeavor to take soils from across the world. As you can see, carbon is everywhere that a plant can grow. And if I can understand what happens in different biomes, and then zoom in into Atlantic Canada, understanding what happens in a particular geographical region, and then zoom in further into the province of Newfoundland and Labrador and see how individual farmers manage things, I may be able to try and establish a connection between soil respiration, which simply indicates how much life there is in the soil, and the ultimate fate of the carbon in the soil. If this can be understood, then we may be better able to turn soil back into an ultimate storage place for carbon rather than a source for carbon, thus ensuring that we can have sustainable food, not simply for ourselves, but for all organisms that depend on the biosphere. Thank you.